What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly Sports History for September 24th, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Tuesday edition of the podcast, a huge Tuesday edition. We will get into the news of the day in a minute, but first, it is Tuesday, time for a little motivation / positivity. And I got this quote from, of all people, Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I think I told you before about, I read his book. I subscribed to his online newsletter. I actually also bought a subscription to his workout app, The Pump, and not getting paid for it, just letting you know what I'm using and it's working. I've been doing some of the workouts on there. They have certain programs. It's really made a difference. But one of the things he does is he sends out motivational quotes to sort of keep everyone focused. And I do tend to use them a lot because they are good and they're very profound at whatever time. But this one, failure has never killed a dream. Quitting kills every dream it touches. And that just really hits home for me. And I truly believe, we talked about this a lot. I talk about it with like our school. Part of our message, our PBIS program, is being resilient, learning from your mistakes, having that growth mindset. And I truly feel failure is just a part of the process. And I mean, look no further. You're listening to me on this day in Philly Sports History. Started off with a couple different things here or there that just did not work out. It would have been very easy to give up on that. But you kind of use it as a learning opportunity and just continue to move forward. And if I'd have quit, never would have gotten any closer to where my goals are. I'm still not there yet. I have I have an end goal in mind, and I just continue to keep working toward it. But that can be carried over into anything you do, whether it's getting your dream job or losing weight, a workout routine, being a better parent, or whatever you're trying to work towards. Don't let failure be something that holds you back, because failure has never killed a dream, but quitting kills every dream it touches. And if you quit, there's no chance you can get it. But if you use failure as fuel to your fire and a learning experience and work toward getting to where you go and really use it as a motivation and I keep saying learning experience, but know what works, what doesn't, and then grow from it, move on. So in the wise words of Arnold Schwarzenegger, failure has never killed a dream, but quitting has killed every dream it touches. Hopefully, as you go through your weeks, that is something that you can take with you. It's one of those things I think about, and it really, even like I said, I mean, with doing the workouts, there are days where I've missed a workout, or I've been too tired because of an Eagles game, or watching a Phillies game, or just didn't do it. But you get back up, next day is a new day, and start fresh. So don't let failure be a deterrent in you achieving your dreams. And again, hopefully you can take that with you as you go through your week. Before we get into the big news, some housekeeping notes. Be sure to follow me on social media, Jimbo_Mont, on Twitter and TikTok, at Philly Jimbo on Instagram. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mont. Spread the word. That's the biggest way to do it. If you're sitting there, you're listening to this, watching this, and you're enjoying it, let somebody else know. Likely, they're probably going to enjoy it as well. So spread the word. Let's continue to grow this thing and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame induction ceremony is fast approaching. All the information you need about the inductees and ticket information is in the description. Have a couple meetings this week. One about a project I'm working on with them, and the other is just the planning meeting for the ceremony. So don't wait. It's going to be a big ceremony this year, but all the information you need is there in the description. And then be sure to check out my boys at the Clashing Conferences, available wherever you get your podcasts as well as on YouTube. Baseball, football, basketball is right around the corner. They got you covered. Want to celebrate the Phillies division title? Go to Philly Goat. They have you covered. Get the Believe shirt. Is this the year we bring back home John Middleton's effing trophy, as he said last night? Let's hope so, but you have to believe first. So go to phillygoat.com, check out what they have. They have election stuff, but pick up that Believe shirt. My daughter has it. She loves it. So phillygoat.com, be sure to use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off your order. That's phillygoat.com, promo code Jim Montgomery. All right, so finally, after 13 long years, the Phillies have won the NL East. 6-2 last night. Aaron Nola just seems to step up to the plate and rise to the occasion in these big games. It seems like every time they need to clinch, he's the one out there. Schwarber hit a bomb. Who else? I forget who else hit a bomb now. Real Muto hit a bomb. Just a fun game. I felt like there was no way they were not going to win that game. Just after JT hit the bomb, I'm like, all right, this is over. And it was a fun game to watch as the anticipation built. But that's just the start of it. We clinched the goal of making the playoffs. We've clinched the goal of winning the division. Next up is getting one of those top 2 seeds. I know the Phillies want the top seed. I've said it all along. I don't care which one they get. I just want one of the buys. I don't want to play in the wild card round. And then the ultimate goal is in the World Series. But there was something refreshing about seeing them celebrate. Been pretty hard on Stubby. He had a new set of overalls and just was doing it up, and it is fun to see these guys, but it's been a long year. Going back to the opening day the opening series, I should say, with the Braves, not looking well, stumbling somewhat out of the gates, and then catching fire, being almost unbeatable. At one point during the season, everybody was just exceeding expectations, then going through the little bit of the lull after the London series, but persevering through, never really losing sight. It would have been very easy for this team to crumble, but they kept focused, and I think that's a testament to we talked a lot at the trade deadline about we don't care about the clubhouse vibes, we're worried about talent, but I think there is something to be said about the vibes in the clubhouse, and you saw that last night, and you certainly saw that during the lull during the summer where we saw the Eagles completely crumble and fall apart when things got tough. This team really stuck together, had each other's back. They were able to get through it, won some big series against the Brewers, big series against the Dodgers, held their own to a certain point against the Braves, and then ultimately when it came time to do it, all they did was win against the better teams. So kudos and congratulations to the Phillies for winning the division for the first time since 2011. My wife and I were talking about it last night, and she was just like, oh. Like, it clicked to her that what we were doing in 2011, and things were certainly different the last time the Phillies won the division. Hopefully this is a precursor of bigger and more and bigger, I should say, celebrations as the Phillies look to bring home John Middleton, who, during Topper's speech, if you did catch that, and NBC Sports. It'll always be Comcast Sportsnet to me. But actually, I go back far enough where I remember when it was the sports channel. But I digress. During Topper's speech, he passed it over to John Middleton, and basically Topper was like, remember when John Middleton said in spring training he wants his trophy back? And he was like, no, I want my effing trophy back. And Comcast did not bleep it out, which was kind of funny. But I think that's a great mindset for them to have. Like, that's what the end goal is. And it did seem as though the celebration was a little bit more subdued than what we've seen in the past. And I like that because the job is not done. You didn't win anything, truthfully. You won the division, great. You set yourself up for the bye. Now let's clinch the bye. And ultimately, it does not mean anything if you don't win the World Series, but they're well on their way. Like I said, I'm happy. It was a big deal for me, and I know it was for them to win the division. It's just one of those things that you want to do it. And to finally beat the Braves and whatever's going on with the Braves, that is what it is. Not going to take away from the fact that the Phillies are the 2024 NL East champs. I can keep mentioning the bye. The magic number is 2 for that second round bye, or the number 2 seed. They're still a half game behind the Dodgers, who were off yesterday. Phils are off Thursday, so that's where it'll even out. But I think it's like 5. The magic number for the 1 seed is 5, but one step at a time. My next goal is I wanted 2 games here between, or the magic number to be 2 for that bye, clinch the bye, and then we'll focus on the number 1 seed, because ultimately you do want the World Series to come through Philadelphia. It will be a bullpen game today. I'm sure some guys will get days off. People will be a little bit hungover. You're playing the Cubs, though, so it's okay. But congratulations to the Phillies on winning the 2024 National League East Division. All right, some final notes on the Eagles before we start looking ahead to Tampa Bay. And I heard a lot of people upset and talking, whether it was on Twitter, on the radio yesterday, about it not being a good win, or asking whether the win was a good win. Yes, that was a good win. The questions that were coming into that game, the way the defense played, that is definitely a good win. Atlanta, had they won that game, that might have been a bad win, but is there such thing as a bad win? I know last year we were winning and it wasn't pretty and it was masking some things. I don't think there's anything being masked with this team right now. I think we know what they are. We know where their deficiencies are. We know what they need to improve on. So I don't really think you're masking. I think last year it was a different beast, because it was almost as though we thought they were better than what they were. And we saw it, but at the same time, we're like, okay, they're 10-1. And I sat here on this podcast and said it pretty much every day during that stretch. They're going to figure it out. They're going to put it together. They haven't played their best game yet. Come to find out, they did. It's just that's who they were. I think the perspective is different this year. We know who this team is, and to win that way and really show that much of an improvement on defense against a team that everybody thought was going to roll over you, I think that's a good win. There certainly are some things to clean up, and I don't know. And I think one of the things in looking at some of the games last night and through 3 weeks, I know this is going to sound crazy, but the Eagles really have been, other than maybe Minnesota, the most consistent team in the NFC. If you really think about it, you have Tampa losing to, who was it, Carolina? The Raiders lost to, the Raiders lost to Carolina. Who did Tampa lose to? Either way, a team they shouldn't have lost. Oh, the Giants. Was it the Giants? Whatever. The point is, nobody's really been playing. Like, everybody's had a good game and a bad game. And for the most part, the Eagles have been pretty consistent. And maybe that's what you're going to need to win the NFC this year. I don't think there's between injuries and just inconsistent play, nobody is running away with this thing yet. So if the Eagles can get things cleaned up and play the way, talent-wise, they're supposed to, they have just as legitimate of a shot as anybody to win the NFC. I mentioned the things to clean up, yes. One team I think we do need to watch out for, and I don't know if it was more Cincinnati being terrible and overrated this year, or maybe Washington finally has something going on down there in D.C., but Jaden Daniels looked pretty damn good last night. So they're a team to watch. I figured they'd be tough. I didn't think they'd be looking this tough this early. But again, nobody has been really played like world beaters. And if you take a step back and look at it objectively, the Eagles technically have been the most consistent team in the NFC, as crazy and as scary as that sounds. One last final thing on Nick Sirianni. I feel like I did this last week. I'm going to do it again. And this is going to seem odd, especially after yesterday I said he's borderline a liability. But I think you need to give him the credit that he deserves. He had that team ready. They were coming off a short week, a disappointing, devastating loss, a game they should have won. And he had that team ready to play. yes, he makes bonehead calls and I'm questioning some of the decision making and things like that. However, I mean, he had that team ready to play. A lot of people were talking about his comments at the press conference yesterday where he said he does kind of step in and call some plays sometime. And I'm okay with that. I mean, he's the head coach. I mentioned it yesterday, and I wish he would get rid of the RPO stuff. If I don't see that ever again, I will be a happy person. But ultimately, it falls on him. So, yeah, there are going to be some times he's going to step in and overrule. That's what you do. I look at myself and my job as more of a CEO type manager, leader, whatever you want to call it. And there are times when I let my team do what they do best. But there are times where I got to step in because ultimately it comes back on me. So with that being said, I'm fine with him going in and overriding some of the plays. What he's overriding to, that's still a little bit unclear. But the decision making, I think, does need some work. But I think everybody is getting on Sirianni. And I don't know. I think he's the easy target. And for some reason, people have this in their head that they're out to get him and it's all him and blah, 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 blah. I think your real concern and your anger should go toward the quarterback. The quarterback's getting a pass here. He's making some horrible decisions, probably worse decisions than what Nick Sirianni's making. And it's one thing to blame Sirianni, the coach, but you got to look. I think we got to. I want to see a clean, much better game out of Jalen this week against Tampa, or I'm going to start questioning whether he's the long-term answer at quarterback. I mean, I think we have a big enough sample size. So I'm not saying Nick Sirianni is going to win Coach of the Year and is the next Vince Lombardi. But you got to put the blame. I think it's easy to put it on Sirianni. But where is the blame for Jalen? Jalen's not playing his best. And don't give me he threw for 300 yards and led the game-winning drive. I mean, if we're being completely honest, he made a terrible decision to throw that ball into the end zone. It's like the second week in a row he's thrown a red zone interception in the end zone. Should have never fumbled that ball. And quite frankly, got lucky that three Saints ran into each other on the Dallas Goedert play. So I think all the criticism that is going towards Sirianni, I think you need to divert some of that toward the quarterback. Number one has not been playing up to par. Certainly not $50 million a year up to par. And one last thing, and then we'll close the book on the Saints. I'm going to take a closer look at the defense. And it kind of goes back into the consistency thing I was talking about with the Eagles being the most consistent team. They're only giving up 21 points a game. And I know that's kind of high. It's middle of the pack. But it's sort of like the very definition of bend but don't break. And they did that the first two games without a pass rush. And I keep going back to it. They gave up 15 against the Falcons before that last drive. They've pretty much shut down the Saints' offense. So it's really the offense that has been making these games closer. If you'd have told me through 3 games the defense would be giving up 21 points a game with the way the offense had all of the clout and all of the expectations coming into the season on them, I would have taken that. So again, it goes back to one person that's really, I feel, not getting his lion's share of the blame here. Everybody's going towards Sirianni because he's the scapegoat. But man, number one is really letting this team down. The defense has not been playing horrible. I'm not saying they're the 91 Eagles by any stretch of the imagination. But if you'd have told me through 3 games they're averaging 21 points a game, I would have said we'd be 3-0 with the way the offense was supposed to put up almost 30 points a game, right? I'm sure all of you out there would have taken that. So all of that to say, you need to focus on who really is to blame here. And Jalen Hurts is not playing like a $50 million franchise quarterback. He's making dumb decisions. And that is really why the Eagles are not 3-0 and why everybody's down on the defense and why everybody's down on Sirianni. If Jalen Hurts is doing his job, we're not having this conversation. So that's it for that. We'll have more on the injuries tomorrow. There wasn't really much of an update other than looks like Britt Covey's going to be out for 6 weeks with a broken bone in his shoulder. But we'll see sort of what happens with that as we go. But again, just be consistent in your criticism of this team. I think I keep saying this. I feel like we're better than that. Let's be better and be smart. And I'm not saying Sirianni doesn't deserve any blame. I'm not saying that. But is it 100% on Sirianni? Sirianni's not making those dumb decisions in the red zone. All right, Flyers got shut out 5-0 last night up in Montreal. Not a good follow-up to the preseason showing. They'll be back at practice today. That's why they don't count, though. It's okay. All right, today we're going to go back to 2017. And on this day in 2017, the Eagles beat the Giants 27-24. Eagles had a 14-0 lead heading into the fourth quarter. And then Eli Manning and Odell Beckham went off. Eli threw 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, 2 of them to Odell. But most importantly, this was the Jake Elliott game. He tied the game with a field goal with 51 seconds left. The Eagles were able to get the ball back and force a punt. The Giants shanked the punt. The Eagles got it in decent field position with 13 seconds left. Carson Wentz threw that out pass to Alshon that went for 19 yards. He got out of bounds with 1 second left. Jake Elliott steps on the field and hits a 61-yarder as time expired to give the Eagles the victory. It was the longest field goal in Eagles history. Elliott did tie that in 2023 against Minnesota. And really, this was, everybody talks about all of the later in the season heroics, the offense clicking on all cylinders, the defense playing the way they did, the Carson Wentz injury, and Nick Foles coming in, and all of that stuff, and rightfully so. But I think this kick is really what saved that season and propelled the Eagles to the Super Bowl, because they were coming off a loss in KC. They lose this game, especially after leading 14-0 in the fourth quarter. Who knows what happened? So Jake Elliott, to me, saved the Eagles' season on this day back in 2017. They rode the momentum to the Super Bowl championship. Sticking with the Eagles today for our Philly Sports Villain. Today, it's Nnamdi Asomugha. And this is probably another dude who it's probably more on the front office that he's a villain versus the player. But just like all the other guys, Nnamdi did not help himself out at all. If you remember, he was part of the quote-unquote dream team. Thanks a lot, Vince Young, for that. The irony of this whole thing is, and I remember this day because I was in Ocean City, Maryland at my brother's bachelor party. They made the signing of Nnamdi. It was, I think it was a lockout or whatever, so everything got pushed back. They signed Nnamdi to the free agent contract, that 5-year, $60 million deal, the same day that the Phillies traded for Hunter Pence in 2011, I guess. Yeah, 2011. So it was we were so excited. It was a big day. Everybody was pumped for it. Season started, and Nnamdi completely forgot how to play. Before the Eagles signed him, coming into it with the Oakland Raiders, he was just dominant. He was the best corner in the game, 4-time All-Pro, 3-time Pro Bowler, and like I said, widely considered a shutdown corner. Nobody passed it to Nnamdi's side. Now, you can make the argument that when he came to Philly, it was Juan Castillo. If you remember that, Juan Castillo went from offensive line coach to defensive coordinator. You could say he wasn't playing the press man coverage he was used to. A lot of new players on that defense. They had trouble gelling. But it's also very likely that at that point in his career, Nnamdi had lost his step. And nobody wants to talk about that. But I think there's a reason why the Raiders let him go. He played 2 years. He was better in year 2, I guess. He was a Pro Bowl alternate. But he certainly was never the same as he was in Oakland. And just sort of the exclamation point on the messy ending to the Andy Reid era. If you remember with the whole Juan Castillo thing, I think there was the Jim Washburn wide 9 was the last year of Andy. He had the issues with his sons at the Target in Plymouth Meeting. Just a lot going on with Andy, and it's a shame that things ended the way they did. But I think Nnamdi is sort of the poster child for the ending of the Andy Reid era. The players, though, later said that they knew he was a bum. I think that was Asante Samuel's exact quote. We knew he was a bum, but it was what it was. They called him overrated. He never really endeared himself to his teammates either. Apparently, he would eat lunch in his car instead of interacting with his teammates. And again, those types of things, they might seem minor, but that obviously translated on the field. And we saw Nnamdi was not who he was. A year later, he's out of the league. He's some big Hollywood producer, whatever now. But man, I think he's a villain more so for being a disappointment. Like the hype and everything. Like he went from the best player in the league, potentially, at least on defense, to forgetting how to play in one offseason. So today's Philly Sports Villain, Nnamdi Asomugha, and I will never forget that day. They signed him the same day the Phillies traded for Hunter Pence. But Nnamdi Asomugha, today's Philly Sports Villain. On this day in 2017, Eagles beat the Giants 27-24 when Jake Elliott saved the Eagles season and potentially guaranteed them winning the Super Bowl. Because I'm telling you, they lose that game, they likely don't get the first round. Excuse me. They likely don't get the first round bye. And you're 1-2. Who knows what that does to the psyche of the team? We know how Carson ended up in his career, so he might not have been able to handle that adversity. But Jake Elliott thankfully hit the 61-yarder as time expired to propel the Eagles. Then they went on a nice little streak during that season, obviously, and won the Super Bowl against the Patriots. So thank you, Mr. Jake Elliott, for saving the season on this day back in 2017. Congrats again to the Phillies for winning the NL East. Quick recap of yesterday's question of the day. I asked you, who was the GOAT of the Eagles game? 60% of you went with Saquon. I probably don't disagree, but Jalen Carter played a hell of a game. So thank you, as always, for participating in the question of the day. Today's question, going back to the Sirianni Hurts thing, and I keep harping on this because I think Sirianni's getting an unfair shake here, and Jalen Hurts is getting off scot-free. What are you more concerned about? Nick Sirianni's decision-making or Jalen Hurts' decision-making? 267-495-8531. That's the Back to the Future voice and text line. I think it's a legitimate question that we're not really discussing because everybody wants to get on Sirianni. But whose decision-making are you more concerned about? Nick Sirianni's, Jalen Hurts? Let me know your thoughts. Get anything else Philly sports related off your chest. 267-495-8531. That's the Back to the Future voice and text line. But let me know whose decision-making you're more concerned with, Nick Sirianni or Jalen Hurts, because they're both making some bonehead plays. Remember, failure has never killed a dream. Quitting kills every dream it touches. As you go through your weeks, keep that in the back of your mind, and we'll see you next week for another Tuesday Motivation. Phil's going to be a little hungover today, but that's okay. Let's keep on winning. Let's chase down the Dodgers. Let's clinch this number 2 seed, 1 seed, whatever, and let's get ready for a red October. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for September 24th, 2024. My name is Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Tuesday, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.